Ankara will be this summit for the bank. We had the buck last year, we need the bank. So that means the commitment from the money to real things in the field has to be enlightened. I think a lot of contracts will be signed. We need to change the relation with the industry. So there is no NATO 3.0 without an industry 3.0.
Shaping the future of the alliance, this is the Transformation Brief, and I'm your host, Jackie Faye Burton. As Allied leaders gather for the NATO summit in Ankara, they're confronting a fundamental question. How does NATO maintain its military advantage in a world where technology is evolving faster than ever, threats are becoming more complex, and the character of warfare continues to change? The answer lies in our ability to adapt faster, integrate new capabilities at speed and scale, and ensure the alliance remains ready for whatever comes next. Here at Allied Command Transformation, that is exactly what we do. And joining me today is Supreme Allied Commander Transformation, Admiral Pierre Vandier. Sir, thanks so much for joining us. Okay, so before we get into the tough questions, everyone around this building knows that you are an avid reader. And we were taking bets as to how many books you have read to fill that head up with so much knowledge. And we were thinking 1,000, 2,000. So if you had to put a number on how many books you've read, what is it?
Does your question include the cartoons?
Sure, why not? No, but actual books.
I mean, cartoons are good, so sometimes it's good too. But so I try to read at least 2 books a month. So it depends on period, more during the vacations. But so that makes, if you make the math during 30 years, 20 books a year makes something that's 600.
Okay, that's still quite a lot. So the point is I need to catch up these days as a mom. All I do is really listen to books, but I wish I could get 2 books done a month for sure. Getting to the meat of the conversation, we have seen a massive change in the way wars are fought, particularly with what is going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine. What are the main takeaways here for the alliance?
So at the beginning of the war in Ukraine, in fact, people have seen a very rapid change because the Ukrainians are at shortfalls everywhere. And there has been a very quick adaptation game. And then we came with this kind of static war with the front line and a constant pressure of Russia and a counter pressure from Ukraine. So because they had shortfalls, and especially in shells, they turned themselves to UAVs, and we've seen the extraordinary deployment of UAVs. They will produce 9 million of them this year, and then develop now the deep strike missions. We see that on the oil facilities, on the refineries. So they've changed the way that they are doing the war because they build new weapons. And we've seen in Epic Fury that even the Iranis were doing the same, and they had all a mix of ballistic missiles and drones that were able to make a sort of a no-go zone around them, even in the Strait of Hormuz. So today, what we thought that was a little change now is a global change. Even the North Korean that have been fighting on the front in Ukraine are bringing back the TTPs, so the techniques and tactics and procedures from the war in Ukraine to the front line to the DMZ with South Korea. So it's spreading everywhere. Yeah. So the main features of this change is first the role of unmanned, definitely. Now the level of enablement of the unmanned using AI is now in the field. We see the role of space, where in fact the commercial space allows targeting loops in minutes, not in days. It's a great revolution. We used to have a process of targeting which was 48 hours. Now it's a question of minutes. We've seen the return of mass, and so on a protracted conflict, mass is still there, and so behind mass there is industry, and so there is a new relationship with industry. And last, I would just stress the speed of adaptation. In fact, in a digital world, the ability to change a lot of things using software just make the adaptation cycle faster than ever. When it's big stuff, when it's steel, when it's electronic components, it takes months, years. Software, it's a question of minutes. Yeah. And so today we see, for example, the drone software, which is updated on a daily basis, really.
Yeah, and honing in on the last point you made on the adaptation, really you could use that argument to apply to all the changes. We need to adapt, we need to update the way we are fighting wars. But last year at the Hague Summit, nations took a huge step by increasing defense spending to 5%. But this year, looking ahead to Ankara at the summit there, what do we expect?
So I think Ankara will be this summit for the bang. We had the buck last year, we need the bang. So that means that commitment from the money to real things in the field has to be enlightened. I think a lot of contracts will be signed. We need to change the relation with industry. So there is no NATO 3.0 without an industry 3.0. And what is this industry 3.0? It will be a mix of what exists today, so big companies that are producing platforms, ammunition, and all this I would say legacy system, but they are important because they count, they matter. And we need a new bulk of companies and startups that will help to go fast, where they are light enough to move at speed and to be very transgressive, to be able to be innovative and not necessarily fulfill all the process to get a go.
Okay, and bringing it back here to Allied Command Transformation, we're really NATO's Futures Command. What are we specifically doing to get to Defense Industry 3.0?
So we've been, since ACT has been created, probing the future. So we were looking ahead, sometimes very, very far ahead. What I've made with SACEUR is to be very close to the operational needs. From SACEUR is fighting tonight, we are thinking of fighting tomorrow. What do we need tomorrow? And so it's a different thinking because we've been accustomed to think from right to left, from long term to today. And today we are much more closer to the operational needs. And so all the experiments we are doing is to give life to projects that we see as necessary in the future, but that need to be implemented now. For example, the task force of USVs we've made last year in the Baltic is a good way to incentivize nations to show that, in fact, the thinking of the future delivers today.
Yeah. And one thing, as if that's not enough, all these things that we're working on, but the beacon projects, no other SAC-T has assigned specific projects that must be delivered within a year. And this past year, we had 6 beacon projects, and you expected capabilities delivered within a year. Why did you decide to, come up with this beacon project initiative?
So I think beacon project, they show the sense of urgency. So that means that it's not long term, it's today, and to embrace the speed of change of the war. Ukrainian beacon project, they are not a year, they are a month. So we need to embrace this speed and the need for speed. The second is give focus. It helps to create SMEs, subject matter experts, in ACT. So all the people that have been dealing with USVs now, they know what they are speaking about. All the people that are dealing with counter drones, now it's the 3rd campaign they've made, they know what they are speaking about. And so they are able to give some good tips on interoperability, on C2, on the quality of the solutions themselves. And so they help the alliance to just make this next generation interoperability real, and not in 10 years, but as quick as possible.
Okay, and you mentioned, learning from the warfighting experience in Ukraine, and particularly working with industry. But it's not like NATO owns assets, but one of the things that ACT does is we kind of point nations in the right direction. And so how are we as ACT helping nations work better with industry?
So I think changing is a question of risk because you don't know what will happen. So it's a bet. You say, okay, I think that the war will be like this in 2 years, in 5 years. And the question for us is that during decades, we had time. The time was on our side. It was cool to think and to rethink before launching everything. And it was a way to save money. Today, we need to be more aggressive, to be more risky in our approach, and so say, okay, let's test it, and then we can go forward. What ACT does, in fact, we test for the others. So instead of waiting, we say, okay, we'll allocate with the beacon project that kind of idea, we'll see in the field what it gives, and if it works, that shows that all our ideas are worth implementing. Task Force is a good example because the cycle we've made this year, we discussed with a lot of countries, and now you have 3 countries in the Baltic that are putting something in the water this summer. The same in the Mediterranean with Italy and Turkey, and so they have understood that what we have given them, de-risking, in fact was worth, that was creating the pathway for them.
And I also saw us working with industry in Romania recently with LCIX, you know, all the industries out there, and then our operational analysts, you know, comparing, you know, which tool was the best to use to fight different things. So I thought that was just really, really eye-opening to how nations, particularly along the eastern flank, can protect against the threat of drones. But switching directions, right now at ACT, you know, we are hosting CWIX, which is NATO's largest interoperability exercise. What are some main takeaways from CWIX?
So it's definitely an enormous and fundamental exercise where we bring all the nations with their systems and we connect them. It used to be a plumber's rendezvous where in fact the idea was to connect the systems. What we've done this year is we put water in the pipes. So we have use cases that use data. The war now is about data flows, data processing. It's not about connectivity. Connectivity is just an enabler. So what we've done, for example, we worked on next generation targeting, how we bring imagery from space, intelligence from different sources. We create data sets and we pipe them to the effectors. That is what we need for the future. And so CWIX is becoming a data-centric exercise and not only a connectivity exercise.
Okay, and so all of these lessons you are going to take with you to Ankara for the summit. And to steal a phrase that you said earlier, last year was about the buck, but this year is about the bang. So earlier you said you probably read about 600 books over your lifetime. Wrapping us up, if you had to name just one book that you would recommend to people, what would it be?
So I would quote a book in English, which is very related to what I do here. Trent Owen, which is a US historian, has written a book about the transformation of the US Navy since the 19th century up to 1945. It's a huge story. The name of the book is Learning War. And so it's a full account of how the people, the technology, the leadership made that happen, going from sail to steam to electricity and how at the end the US Navy during World War II was at the top of the artillery, of the employment of naval aviation and all these things. And the transformational journey that has been made in 40 years is just something which is very inspirational for us.
Okay, sir, I guess I need to buy that today. And that's all for this episode of the Transformation Brief. Thanks for listening.